Hey, what's up, DS3TV? I can see you haven't subscribed to the channel. It's kind of weird. You should subscribe. I mean, we got some good content here. And also, go to the Twitch that's in the link down in the description. Link is probably right here under me. And yeah, should do all of that. And yeah, please subscribe. Get to see me have hot sauce that I don't really want to have when we get to 10,000. So subscribe. Alright, what's up DS3TV? We're going to get into the video. I know I haven't made a video in a while, but this is going to be changing for now and future times right now. So let's get into it. Hangman is a weird game. This has been sitting in my watch later for a while. I have no idea why, because we reacted to another one of this person's videos, so I don't know why it's still there, but it is, and we're gonna watch it and see what's going on, because yeah, I can see how like Hangman would be like a very weird game to another, like definitely to somebody who has never heard of Hangman before.
You know, that game that you play when you're in a family restaurant or in a classroom and in no other environments. Have you ever, really thought about Hangman, from a game design perspective? Because I've been thinking about...
Although, I will say, a game that I miss from my childhood is Heads Up 7-Up. That was such a fun game.
Hangman a lot recently, and wow, Hangman is a lot stranger than you'd think. I'm Misali, and Hangman is a weird game. Part 1. What Hangman is. Let's start with the basics. Hangman is a pencil and paper game about guessing a word one letter at a time. It's generally played with two players, one player guessing a word picked by a second player. It'll be useful to give these roles names, so I'm going to call the player who doesn't know the word the guesser, and the player who does know the word the executioner.
You can have more guesses though. Definitely you can have more. It's usually played with one person, but you can play it with that's why he started with a class too.
The most obviously strange thing...
Oh, sorry. I'm getting some liquid off.
About this game is the theme. Using a drawing of a person being hanged to keep track of score is extremely morbid for a children's game. This is, however, not unique to Hangman. I mean, yes, the specifics of it definitely are, but games for children have had dark themes as long as children have played games, from Ring Around the Rosie to Fortnite. The theme is an aspect of Hangman that's somewhat problematic for one of the main contexts where the game is played. Hangman is often played in classrooms in order to teach children vocabulary. Despite how ubiquitous Hangman is, an elementary school teacher drawing a stick figure being hanged in front of a group of small children isn't the best idea. As a result, classroom Hangman often involves things like crossing apples off a tree or drawing a stick figure that's just like...
I don't think I've ever played that though. We've always played it the first way. So I would definitely say that that's not... I mean, that's just not how I played it growing up. They probably changed it now. They probably recently changed it since I've been out of school. Which, if I was out of school in 2019, it's been 4 years. So yeah.
Chilling there. Or a turtle. Lesser analysts would stop at the theme, but come on. Everyone knows that Hangman's theme is weird. It's honestly the least weird thing about this game, all things considered. Let's go through an example game just as a reminder to everybody at home how the game works. The executioner starts by writing 9 blanks, corresponding to the 9 letters in the word they've picked for the guesser to guess. They then draw the gallows that will serve to keep track of the guesser's incorrect guesses. For the rest of the game, the executioner takes a more passive role, providing feedback for the guesser as they guess letters. If they guess a letter that appears in the word, the executioner fills in the blank where it appears. If the letter appears multiple times in the word, they fill in everywhere that the letter appears. If the guesser guesses a letter that does not appear in the...
It's honestly a more morbid game of Wheel of Fortune. If you have ever watched Wheel of Fortune, it's basically a more morbid game of that.
Word. The executioner adds a single line to the gallows drawing, which eventually becomes a drawing of a person being hanged, the titular hangman. If the executioner finishes drawing the hangman before the guesser can guess the word, the executioner wins. But if the guesser guesses the word first, the guesser wins. In this case, the executioner won, so now they reveal to the guesser that the word was the Hookwagods. At this point, the guesser accuses the executioner of cheating, claiming that Verhoekwaarts isn't a real word. The argument escalates, creating a scene in the middle of the family restaurant. While in this example game the guesser was guessing letters somewhat arbitrarily, it's possible to play the role of the guesser far more strategically. Part 2. Winning at Hangman. Now I know what you're thinking. Playing Hangman is so easy. All you need to do is guess letters in decreasing order of how common they are, right? Well, not quite. Sure, that works at first, but eventually you gotta switch from thinking about individual letters and start thinking about what words it might be based on the pattern of blanks. Of course, that's not really a strategy. That's more like a human intuition thing. That's like saying that the best chess strategy is to think about what moves will make you likely to win the game and then do those. So let's make it more rigorous. As the guesser, each letter you guess is a chance to get information from the executioner. At the start, all you know is how long the word is, but
And also, if you think about this, it's harder if you guess. So, like, say like this, right? You guess a word, you hit S, right? If you wanted to guess the next letter T and say if it's like you're playing with the whole class, and then somebody says T like right after you or like right before your next turn, that could just be, that could just be it. Like that literally, because then you're like, okay, I have to think of like another letter. And if everybody keeps saying like the other letters that, are popular in every word, in most words, I would say, you're kind of screwed. You're not going to win.
Each letter you guess tells you more about the word. This is obvious in the case when the letter is in the word, but sometimes it's more useful when the letter isn't in the word. I conjecture that the perfect strategy for the guesser, therefore, can be precisely defined like this. 1. Consider all words that it could be, given the information you already have, how long it is, where specific letters are, and specific letters that are not in the word. 2. For each letter you have not guessed yet, assume that the word does not contain that letter, and determine how many of the possible words would still be on the table if that were the case. 3. Select whichever letter minimizes this number. How well does this strategy work? Well, I wrote some code and tested it out. If you guess letters randomly with no strategy beyond just making sure that you don't guess the same letter twice, you end up making about 16 incorrect guesses on average. Guessing letters in order of frequency is much better, resulting in around 10 incorrect guesses on average. Both of these strategies are incredibly simple, and predictably they're both pretty bad at Hangman. Guessing at random usually involves shouting out more than half the alphabet before you get it, and even though guessing by frequency is an improvement over that, not adjusting what letters are prioritized as more of the word is revealed means that it practically assumes that every word contains every vowel at once, wasting a lot of guesses. My conjectured perfect strategy, on average, only needs 2 incorrect guesses, and in fact, the most common result was for it to only make 1 incorrect guess. As an example of just how good the perfect strategy is, let's compare it to the simple frequency strategy for the word joyousnesses. For the simple frequency strategy, joyousnesses is a very challenging word, as it contains the letter J, the letter that appears in the fewest words in the word list I used. This strategy will always blindly guess every single letter in the alphabet before it guesses J. In total, it makes 19 incorrect guesses. Now compare this to how the perfect strategy does. The first thing the perfect strategy does is notice that the word is 12 letters long. It understands that for 12-letter words, the most common letter is I, and guesses that first. Since joyousnesses doesn't have an I in it, then it only considers 12-letter words that do not contain an I, and finds that the most common letter among those words is E. It then continues for the rest of the game filling out the blanks in the same order as the simple strategy, except that it doesn't make any incorrect guesses between. As soon as it guesses O, it already knows exactly what word it is, and so the perfect strategy gets to the answer with only 1 incorrect guess. Incredible.
That is amazing. I didn't even know you could. That's insane.
One slight problem is that the perfect strategy only works if you have a perfect knowledge of what words the executioner could have selected beforehand. In practice, no human player would be able to use this strategy. That is, except in one specific case. You know how Hangman is sometimes played in a classroom to teach children vocabulary? Well, in that situation, the guesser can be expected to know every single word that the executioner could have selected. Simply by memorizing the given list of words, it's entirely feasible for a guesser playing Classroom Hangman to play perfectly optimally. This fact is, I believe, the reason why Hangman is a popular game for teaching vocabulary. One minor issue with it as a teaching method, however, is that it doesn't actually encourage learning what words mean, just what letters are in them. Even if what you're trying to trick your students into studying for is a spelling test or something, with a small enough list of potential words, it's not really necessary to know exactly how to spell any of the potential words to be able to use this strategy, just what letters are in them. While the guesser has many possible strategies that they can use, the executioner, in their more passive role, seems to be far more limited in their options, not having any real choice outside of what the initial word is. What's the hardest word to guess in Hangman is not a very hard question to find.
Wait, it's jazz? Well, yeah, because it's a 4-letter word. So you can't really, It's a four-letter word, and it has the most uncommon letters, which is J and Z. So yeah, you really would not expect.
Find answers to. The answer I've seen the most is jazz, a claim that can be traced back to research done by John McLoone back in 2010. J and Z are two of the least common letters used in the English language, so the guesser is unlikely to guess them, so a word that contains both.
Also, X would probably be another really unlikely, like any word that has an X in it is very unlikely because you just can't. Like, most people don't even think about the letter X because it's not in a lot of words, right? Especially in the English language. It's just not.
Letters would naturally be pretty hard to guess. But is it the hardest word to guess? After all, there's another word that's exactly the same as jazz, except that the A is replaced with a less common vowel. So clearly John wasn't using a complete enough dictionary. If I can't trust John McLoone, I guess that means I'll have to do the math myself. Unfortunately, given that it can take up to a full second for my laptop to do all the regex calculations necessary to do my conjectured perfect hangman strategy, I can't just check every single English word. That would take longer than I have the patience for. Instead, I had to rely on looking for trends among the words in the random sample that I was able to check. One thing that's pretty obvious is that the harder words to guess are the ones that have less common letters. Longer words where the only vowel is Y are especially difficult, like rhythm and sympathy. However, long words in general are not, as it turns out, necessarily more difficult to guess than short words. The most important factor is actually the total number of unique letters in the word, where words with fewer unique letters are more challenging to guess. Consider the random guesser. Statistically, the more unique letters there are in the word, the more likely any individual guess they make is to be correct. And of course, real human guessers don't generally guess letters at random. The more of the word is revealed, the more well-informed their guesses become. So then, what is the hardest word to guess? Well, based on the random sample of words that I was able to throw at my perfect strategy, it would appear that the answer is some word with only 2 unique letters, arranged in a pattern that could fit as many words as possible. The word yay proved itself a challenge. There are a lot of 3-letter words where the middle letter is A, as it turns out. Axe is a hard word for a similar reason. But is that the limit? Are there words with fewer unique letters than that? Well, Merriam-Webster helpfully lists 6 definitions for F as a noun. Clearly, F is a word. In fact, the same holds true for any letter you look up. If every letter could be a word, that means that the executioner can pick one of those, and no matter what the guesser does, it's impossible for them to get any useful information about the word unless they happen to guess what letter it is. So then, the most difficult word to guess would just be whatever letter is the least common.
But then that's not even a word. I mean, well, I can't say that that's not even a word because you just showed that. But I'm like, that's not a word that you would like. Hey, like you even said, it's like it's common vocabulary. It's like vocabulary, right? So it would have to be like an actual like word that has a definition that's not. If I can even just go back to it, I could actually like talk about it a little bit. Yeah, the 6-letter English alphabet. That's not really That's not a definition. That's just It's just telling you it's a letter. Graphic representation. A graphic representation of this letter. It's still saying it's a letter. A speech counterpart of That's the pronunciation. And then the 4th tone of a C major scale. You wouldn't in. I'm just gonna be honest. In a music class, I don't know if you would even play Hangman in a music class, but if you did, I don't think that you would. I just don't know that you would literally like use that in a Hangman. Like, I feel like that's just a little bit of a cheat. I feel like it's a little bit of a cheat. Just being honest. One designated F, especially the 6 in the order. Well, yeah, because it's the 6th letter. It's the 6th letter of the alphabet, of course. Like, some of these things aren't. Some of these, like, the definitions that they have here aren't, like, that's not a word. It's telling you it's a letter in the definition. Like, even here it says, like, at the bottom for B or whatever, 1 grade or rated an F. That shows right there that's like it's a letter, something shaped like the letter F. Yeah, it's just like a letter. It's not like an actual grade, to be honest.
impossible for them to get any useful information about the word unless they happen to guess what letter it is. So then, the most difficult word to guess would just be whatever letter is the least common. So the hardest word to guess is the letter J, or just whatever the guesser's strategy happens to prioritize last. There's actually not any one clear consensus on what the least common letter is in English. It depends on a lot of different factors. However, within the text file I've been using as my reference list of English words, only considering how many words a letter appears in at all and not how many times it appears total, and also not considering how common words are relative to each other, the least common letter, and therefore the hardest letter to guess, is J. But wait a second. There's no way anybody would actually be okay with that in a real game of Hangman, right? I'm pretty sure the whole "the dictionary has a definition for it so it's a word" argument wouldn't be able to convince a real human guesser that J is a word. And
Well, yeah, that's why I was. Yeah, because I mean, just because it's in the web, like it's telling you in Webster's dictionary that it's not a, it's a letter. It's telling you it's a letter in almost every definition. Some of the definitions were like a little bit complex on how they wanted to say it, but it was either a letter or a pronunciation. That's literally what it said in a book. It's not, doesn't mean it's a word. J is not a word. Like, it's just
besides,
not.
they totally just accuse the executioner of cheating. How do they know that the executioner actually picked J at the start of the game? For all the guesser knows, the executioner could have just waited until they ran out of guesses and then retroactively decided what the letter was. Which brings us to Part 3. Cheating at Hangman. Dynamically changing what the word is mid-game is the most powerful technique that the executioner can use, and following the standard rules of Hangman, there is literally nothing stopping them from doing so. If done well, the executioner can use this strategy without the guesser noticing anything. Suppose that the executioner starts the game by putting down 6 blanks. They can then, by not actually having picked a word at the start, claim that the guesser's first 5 guesses are all incorrect no matter what they are, and only then actually select a word. To do this, all you need is to simultaneously have 6 words in mind that have no letters in common. Then, after their first 5 guesses, pick one of them. This is far from the only exploit that the executioner can use. Remember, the executioner wins when they finish drawing the hangman. So, how many incorrect guesses does that take? 6, 10, 15? There's a complete lack of standardization. Some players deliberately keep adding detail to the hangman as to give the guesser extra guesses. An executioner who's in it to win, however, can do the opposite of that. Before the game starts, draw the gallows including a noose. After their first incorrect guess, retroactively decide that the noose is actually the hangman's head and draw a suspiciously shaped body connected to it. After their second incorrect guess, draw a leg coming from the middle of the body. Then after their third incorrect guess, draw the hangman's arms T-posing, and confidently declare yourself the winner. Congratulations, you have now drawn the hangman in a way that only gives the guesser 3 incorrect guesses. When the guesser predictably calls you out and says that that's not how hangman works, the lack of standardization means that it's completely possible for you to convince them that you think that's how hangman works. To make it extra hard, don't even write down their wrong guesses, force them to keep track of that themselves. But say it was decided before the start of the game how many guesses are given, so you can't actually do any of that. No worries, you can still bend the spirit of the game quite a bit. Remember the example game at the start with the word Fahukwagods? Was that a valid word to have picked? No, you won't find it in a respectable dictionary, but dictionaries aren't authorities on what is or isn't a quote-unquote real word. Even if they were, they still wouldn't be authorities on what is or isn't a valid word to pick in Hangman. Consider Scrabble, another word game. Scrabble is often played competitively, and Scrabble competitions do in fact have standard rules for which words are legal to play. It's not just the set of all English words that can be spelled within the limitations of the basic rule set. Words that are, quote, foreign, hyphenated, capitalized, disparaging, derogatory, obscene, or offensive are all banned from competitive Scrabble. Hangman, as the pencil and paper game, doesn't have an official guide to what words are legal, which implies that everything is fair game. In fact, many digital implementations of Hangman seemingly embrace this freedom and allow any string of characters to be played as a word, putting players in the same situation as the end of the example game from the beginning, left to decide amongst themselves whether or not the word the executioner picked was valid. But it's not just a matter of what counts as a real word. What counts as a letter? Here's the question. Does the word piñata contain the letter N in English? In Spanish, the answer would be no.
I mean, no, it does not, because it's a different word. Like, it literally is a different letter on the... Like, even if you... Okay, like, giving you this option, right? Switch to Spanish on your keyboard on your phone. You will see N, and then also you will see the N with the, I can't... At the moment, I cannot think of what this is called, but yeah, that's a totally different letter in the alphabet. They have more letters in the alphabet. But And yeah, like how he's saying, like it's a complete, like it's considered a completely separate letter from in Spanish. That's true because it makes a different sound. I can't say that it doesn't like. Also, I feel like he's not understanding that well, not he's not understanding. I'm not gonna say that. He's purposefully saying that like he's purposefully acting as if context doesn't matter, because like yes, if you if you're in an English class, if you're like, in a class that's literally everybody only knows English, why would you pick a Spanish letter? Like nobody knows that. You wouldn't know that. Believe me, in public school, it's a lot of people that don't really know or care about Spanish. Just being honest. Um, you know, just me speaking from a position of actually learning Spanish, and I like care about it a lot. Like I'm still like be trying to become fluent. um, like it's kind of weird, but yeah, they like a lot of people just don't care about Spanish. So like unless you were in a Spanish class, you wouldn't even think about that letter.
N tilde is considered a completely separate letter from N in Spanish, and therefore in Spanish language hangman, N would be an incorrect guess for the word. But in English, diacritics are often ignored. Pinata is often spelled without the tilde as a perfectly acceptable alternate spelling. But this isn't about pinata without a tilde, it's about pinata with a tilde. Does that word
I've never seen it with. I don't think I've ever seen it without the N tilde.
contain the letter N? And if so, how would it work in hangman? Does the diacritic count as a separate letter? If the guesser guesses N, does the executioner write it with the tilde or without it? It's somewhat common for things that aren't letters to be included as part of the setup for the word at the start of the game, like hyphens or spaces. But there's definitely an argument you could make, especially if you're trying to win as the executioner, that these should be counted as separate letters, and that the guesser needs to actually guess them. J is a hard word.
Why would that be a wait? Why? Like you wouldn't be able to know the word if it didn't have a like. Certain words actually do have to have a hyphen, and if it's a sentence, yeah, it needs a comma. So like you couldn't just you can't just do that. Like that's crazy. Also, I mean, not a comma, apostrophe. Like certain words just need those things because that's literally how the word works.
Word to guess, but someone guessing randomly still has a 1 in 26 chance of getting it immediately. The word that's, on the other hand, if presented as a 6-letter word, might be literally impossible to guess. And if the guesser accuses you of cheating, feel free to argue that there's no specific rule that says an apostrophe isn't a letter. In fact, go right ahead and get into a heated debate over whether or not apostrophe.
I mean, that's literally how you just won't have any friends. Like, because that's like you are cheating. I'm gonna be honest, you are cheating if you do that. Like yeah, it's a heated it would be a heated debate, but like it is cheating. Like if nobody can literally get it, then yeah, like like that's completely cheating. That's crazy.
Apostrophe is a letter in general. You have my support. The thing is, all of these ways for the executioner to cheat and win are like kinda obvious. So why doesn't the executioner always win in practice? The reason is that winning as the executioner just isn't very fun. Part 4. Hangman is a weird game. Hangman doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's an important part of the word-guessing game genre. Yet, as a word-guessing game, Hangman is clearly an odd one out. Take Pictionary, for example. That's a pretty typical word-guessing game. In a round of Pictionary, one player is randomly assigned a word, then they have to communicate with their team members what the word is by drawing a picture of it. Their team wins the round if they can guess the word within a time limit. Most word-guessing games follow this basic format. Players are put into teams, and players who know the word try to help guessers guess the word under some restriction. Crucially, players who know the word and players who don't are working towards the same goal. Word-guessing games are fundamentally cooperative. They can, of course, be played competitively, but always as a competition to see how well you can cooperate. Imagine if Pictionary worked like Hangman. Instead of the word being randomly selected for the artist picks it themselves, and the artist wins if the guesser fails to guess the word. Under these rules, they'd be incentivized not to draw anything. They just wait out the timer and automatically win. That's no fun at all. And that's exactly the reason why it isn't fun to win as the executioner. Of course you want the guesser to win, because that's what makes word-guessing games fun. But
well, yeah, that's the whole point is to make it easier for the guesser. I'm happy he got back to the point of like, yeah, the reason why the executioner would not do that. because it's like it's not like no, it's not fun. But also like yeah, I mean I just had like those little gripes I guess, but like yeah. It's not fun as like an executioner to like do any of those
But
things.
even then, the way the executioner isn't supposed to have any real choice during gameplay means that Hangman isn't designed for the limited communication antics that make up most word-guessing games. So even though it definitely is a game about guessing words, Hangman isn't really a word-guessing game, in the same sense that Portal isn't really a first-person shooter. So if it's not a word-guessing game, what is it? Maybe it's more helpful to consider the medium rather than the genre.
I always consider Portal like a creative game. Maybe people in the comment section might have a other view of that, but to me, it's a creative game. Like it's like a creative storytelling. It's a creative storytelling. That's how I would like categorize Portal. If I had
Hangman
to.
is a pencil and paper game. Pencil and paper games are categorically extremely simple. Their rules are passed down through oral tradition and are minimal enough that they only take seconds to learn. This isn't unique to pencil and paper games. There is definitely something to be said about the elegance of games like rock, paper, scissors, or even tag. Pencil and paper games are like a halfway point between games that use nothing other than the human body and proper board games. The most well-known pencil and paper game is tic-tac-toe, also known as Noughts and Crosses. While tic-tac-toe and Hangman are in completely different genres, they do have at least one thing in common beyond their medium. Just like how winning as the executioner in Hangman isn't very fun, being good at tic-tac-toe is also not very fun. If both players know what they're doing, the result is a tie every single time. But really, the fact is that other pencil and paper games just don't have the same amount of open-endedness as Hangman. Pencil and paper
Out of all of like the simple games you can play, I would definitely say Hangman is not my favorite. I would say like charades is a not what is not really a simple game because that's like still I saw like the little like the tree of games that he had. I would say rock paper scissors is still probably my favorite because it's literally random. Because you think about it, you're just going or like rock paper scissors shoot or whatever, and then you have to like put like throw out something. Whether it wins or not, it's completely random. Um, Especially if you don't throw out the same thing every single. Like if you can't throw out the same thing every single time too. Like if you like add extra rules onto it, it's very like random.
paper games have simple rules with unambiguous win states for both players, and Hangman just isn't like that. You can't just decide to keep playing after tic-tac-toe ends, but for Hangman, that's seemingly the default way to play. Perhaps I'm looking at this too broadly. Of course there are games like Hangman. Just look at Wheel of Fortune, hugely popular game show that's clearly just Hangman with prizes attached, right? Well, not necessarily. There's some pretty fundamental differences. First of all, there are multiple guessers competing against each other. This is kinda like Classroom Hangman, where
Yeah, I'm about to say that's still Hangman. That's
a
like
teacher
classic.
takes the role of the executioner and an entire classroom of students are the guesser. How do you turn Hangman into a competitive game? You could argue that Hangman is already competitive, as the guesser and executioner are competing against each other. However, I don't think that competitive is entirely accurate. Due to the asymmetric nature of the game, the two players are better described as adversaries, not.
I mean, when it's Classroom Hangman, it still is it's competitive because like I remember as a kid, you would get like a treat if you got the word, if you got the word right, or like you would get like you would get something if you got the word right, or like even like I think we might have played it a couple times in high school, and you even would get like you would get um what is it like you would get like extra credit on like your test or something like that on your next test. You would get like it was just like certain things that you would get if you win, like if you were the one to win out of all of your other classmates. It's not really competitive against the executioner, but it's competitive against the guessers.
Competitors. They are working against each other, but they aren't competing. Anyway, to turn Hangman from an adversarial game into a competitive game, one easy thing to change is to have multiple guessers take turns guessing letters, and say that whoever gets the final letter wins. This is good enough for most variants of Classroom Hangman, but Wheel of Fortune has a few more specific fundamental differences. First, Wheel of Fortune is actually about guessing phrases and not single words. This is a pretty minor change, all things considered, but it
I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would say that Wheel of Fortune. I mean, because you still have to guess. Like, you're still saying letters. It's not guessing words. Like, I mean, some of the time. I mean, some of the time it is actually words. Actually, it could just be like one word. Some some of the time.
Crucially increases the total number of possibilities by a functionally infinite amount. To counter this, a general category is given to the guessers right at the start. This piece of information provides a little bit of context to the round and allows players to make more informed guesses. The second fundamental.
Also, I would say like another big difference with Wheel of Fortune is that usually you would know the theme before even going into like doing Wheel of Fortune, right? Like, because like, you know, some weeks they have like a teacher's week or something like that, right? Or like just like, I don't know when it stopped. I still want to put out this video because it is a very good video. And yeah, I don't know when it stopped, but I was just saying, if it stopped recently, hopefully, that I do love this video. I like how like he's giving like literally almost everything I have said, even if it wasn't caught on camera. He has given me a rebuttal for, and you know has like has challenged me, which is good. I like that. I actually like that type of video when it's something like this. Like when it's something like this about you know, about like something as arbitrary as Hangman. But you know, and now we're getting into Wheel of Fortune, where I will say I was actually saying that one of not that one of the also because like he said like guessing phrases and not words. Sometimes it actually is a word. Usually like on the final prize puzzle usually, but also another thing that helps out contestants is um like they usually like you know it can be like a week where they like a themed week or whatever where they have like I don't know like teachers week or whatever like teachers appreciation week or like students week or another type of thing like if you're doing it on I think it's the fourth the fourth like right like May is it May 4th where it's like May the Force be with you or whatever, and they'll have like Star Wars like some Star Wars like puzzles and that or whatever. So yeah, like if you know like the theme of it too, that actually does help you a lot more than it can in Hangman because yeah. But so far he was like, yeah, guessing phrases, not words, awarded random amounts, and individual correct guess for individual correct guesses, buying vowels, knowing frequency isn't as helpful or important. Um, but yeah.
Entirely on knowledge of letter frequency to win. The randomness of the wheel means that even a player who somehow knows exactly what the phrase is before any letters have been revealed has a slim but non-zero chance of never getting a single opportunity to guess anything. But like, why? Why does Hangman need to be adjusted to make...
That's not true. That's actually not true. I mean, well, he will no. Like I'm about to say, most. So basically, everybody will have a chance to guess because even if you're not able to guess on those like first two puzzles, you usually have a third puzzle afterwards, and you're able to guess then too. Because like you would, the first person who goes at the start of the round is changes every round. It's not based on like whoever has the most money is the first person to go. So a that is a not as accurate, really. But I mean, yeah, I feel like it's. I do think it's. I mean, I think it's actually a lot more skill based than luck. Actually, like I think actually, uh, Heyman is actually. I think Heyman is still skill based too. Like because you're learning. I guess you're learning vocab, but it's still a skill to know like certain because I've seen people that like can get the word literally with like almost nothing on or literally sometimes no words on, right? Like that's a skill. Like because I've seen like people do that like for multiple rounds where like the topics are completely different.
make it harder for more skilled players to win in order for it to work as the basis of a game show. It's almost as though they had this idea for a show where you spin a wheel then sometimes get money, but they didn't want it to just be televised gambling, so they had to attach it to some sort of skill-based game, and Hangman was just the first thing they thought of. Maybe Hangman would fit in more in the genre of guessing game. Take, for example, Guess Who. Like Hangman, a player selects from one of a set of possible options at the start of the game, and then the other player gathers information by guessing individual segments. At an abstract level, they're very similar games. There's another game that has just as much in common with Hangman, Battleship. Battleship is actually even closer to Hangman, since there's more control at the start of the game over the initial setup, and there's more clear limits for what things can actually be guessed. There is one thing Guess Who and Battleship have in common with each other that they don't have in common with Hangman. Both games are symmetric. The two players are both guessers. And it makes sense, right? Otherwise the player who isn't guessing would have nothing to do for the whole.
And also another thing, you don't have you can't look at the other person's board too.
Game. Say, that gives me an idea for how we could make Hangman more fun for both players. Just make it like Battleship, make it symmetric. At the start of the game, both players pick a word, then they take turns guessing letters from each other's words. You don't even need the Hangman to keep track of incorrect guesses, because the winner would just be whoever guesses the other player's word first. Sure, it's definitely further away from the spirit of word guessing games, but...
but also you could just see who can make the longer word, and then... I guess that would be better, but I guess I can give a little bit of a contrary opinion. You can give you could have just went for the shorter word, I would say, or a longer word, depending on if you wanted to make the other person lose.
As established, Hangman isn't like other word guessing games. Part 5. Conclusion. Hangman is a two-player asymmetric adversarial pencil and paper word guessing game. Its position in pop culture is completely unique. It's a game that everyone has played, yet at the same time it's a game where nobody knows exactly what the rules are. It's a game where one player needs to have an understanding of letter frequency to succeed, while the other player has nothing preventing them from cheating, something which they will only take advantage of to prevent themselves from winning. It's completely unlike anything else in its genre. It's completely unlike anything else in its medium. Hangman is a weird game. Thanks for watching. I've been Misali, and apostrophes are definitely letters.
I don't think that I feel like that's still wrong, but it's fine. That was a good video. Talk to you guys in the next one. Subscribe to the channel. Also, you can recommend me videos in the comment section down below if you have anything that you want me to watch. And talk to you guys in the next video. And yeah, peace.